How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago? How much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Prediction Markets Edge right here on the early line. Joe, love to see a new little facet here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Get a half hour of those prediction markets that we know and love. Donnie Rightside along with Joe Ranieri. The excitement levels, Joe, could not be higher right now.
I'm excited. Bring on the madness, Donnie. I am all for it, my man. Bring it on.
Now, we always like to talk about the hot topics here, but also understand this, whether it's, predictive markets here or you're looking at sports book markets here, sometimes you just can't use terms like, oh, it's the Super Bowl here. And certainly now you can't use March Madness if you're in the predictive markets. So when I ask you this question, Joe, the round of 16 qualifiers, what does that actually mean to you? What do we call the round of 16 for the March Madness tournament here, Joe? Do you know what we call it?
I don't know, the best of the rest at this point. Here's 16, the best 16 teams, Donnie. That, to me, call it what it is. If you can make it through the first weekend, that first couple of games, you're heading to the Sweet 16.
Exactly. So we can't call it, I guess, the Sweet 16, or they can't list it as the Sweet 16. So, Joe, we'll just keep it generic. Men's round of 16 qualifiers, which, as Joe just pointed out, you got to win 2 games to get to the Sweet 16. And if we're looking at teams that are expected to do that with high levels of chance, that's Michigan, that's Illinois, that's Duke, that's Florida, that's Houston here, Joe. But as we know, a lot of Cinderellas show up in this round of 16 here. And if you slide it down, you're still getting odds on big-name teams, Kentucky, St. John's, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee, Joe. Is it easy to take a contract out and say, yeah, Duke's going to be there? You won't make much money back. And if you're looking at a $100 investment on Duke, that's going to pay you back $109, Joe. Are we going top of the food chain? Or are there some chances for you to say, you know what? Round of 16 here, I'm going to go a little bit lower.
Well, we know they're treating this with these prices as if that opening, couple of days of the tournament is just a formality. I mean, look at some of these prices with the teams at the top, right? I mean, Michigan, 88 cents, Illinois, 86. Listen, if it's one thing that we know about March Madness, especially early on, is that anything is possible. It usually at some point destroys the chalk. So to me, I would be looking maybe a little further down the board instead of the favorites. Teams like Gonzaga, for instance, even though they just lost to St. Mary's, at 59 cents might very well be worth a shot here, Donnie, because they're going to bring the defense, and they might get their best player back as well.
Yeah, seeding, which we'll talk about in just a few moments here, Joe. But understand this, to get to the Sweet 16. Once again, you need 2 victories here. But also, we like to see where some of these teams were trading at. And as you know, Texas Tech was one of the better teams in the country with one of the better players here. You get one of those superstar players injured because Texas Tech, on January the 28th, Joe, was trading at 99% chance to be in the Sweet 16. That's no longer the case right now as I take my little handy-dandy scroller and find them, Joe, trading at 58% now. These numbers change on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, they do. I mean, volatility is what we're talking about here, right? Because let's face it, Kansas didn't look all that good again, right, in their last game. So what happens? Yeah, well, they were trading at one point when they were winning games much closer to what Michigan is at right now. But after a kind of lackluster effort there, now all of a sudden we got a little bit of a discount here on them. But that's going to happen, Donnie, this week as we get ready for conference tournaments.
Top seeds here that you want to look at on Polymarket here. Duke, Michigan, and Arizona all trading respectively, Joe. 98%, 96%, and 93%. Little fall off there to UConn at 69%, and away you go here. Number 1 seeds for the tournament. Not going to win it, Joe. Not needing a Final Four, not needing a championship, just to be a number 1 seed here. Are we going top of the food chain once again? There's some other teams that you figure might be able to crash the party with a late surge in their conference regular season, which will end this week, and then into conference tournament action for the big boys next week, Joe.
Well, I mean, looking at these prices, right, you would think the algorithm in the market is already saying, listen, the selection committee, your job's already done. You got Duke, you got Michigan, you got Arizona. I mean, they are priced as absolute shoo-ins, right? But it's that 4th one there, Donnie, that 4th number 1 seed, which is where the discrepancy might come in. And right now, as of today, it's between UConn and Florida, but could Alabama play a role there? In these kinds of markets, at those price levels, I am looking to kind of short some anywhere I can go. And right now, I do think while UConn has got the leg up right now in this market, I'm still looking at Florida. I think Florida is going to be another number 1 seed here, and I think the committee is going to go that way as well.
Let's take a look, Joe. Kalshi, as they point out, let's go a little bit of, vanilla here. Men's semifinals qualifier. Well, that's a boring way to say the Final Four, people who's stepping up to the plate. Duke trading at a 57% chance. Arizona, 51% chance. Michigan, 48, and then Florida at 42. Just to keep this in mind, Florida, one of the hottest teams, winning the SEC regular season championship, clinching that the past couple days. $100 investment. If you think Florida, Joe, makes it to the Final Four, that pays back $239. This is a market that you figure, because it takes more than 2 wins to get to a Sweet 16. You got to win your elite game, then you find yourself in the Final Four. A lot more opportunity and a lot more profit here, Joe, in this market.
Yes, there is, but there's also a lot more volatility because we still don't know what the brackets are going to look like, what the regions are going to look like. And I can tell you right now, if UConn does get in as that 4th number 1 seed, good luck to whatever side of the bracket Florida is going to be a number 2 seed in, because you're going to have to go through Florida, who likely should have been the 1 seed anyway. So I do think at this point, Donnie, in the Final Four, we need to start shorting some of these chalky favorites like the Michigans of the world here, because while it's been good so far, they have also shown an ability. With the right matchup, Michigan is not invincible here. So there might be a few opportunities to look down that board, maybe at a number of possible 2 or 3 seed to get some value.
Yeah, and as Joe's pointing out as well, this isn't a best of 3 where the cream is going to rise to the top. You got one game, the other team shoots lights out. You don't play well, you get in the foul trouble. You are out of this tournament, which makes it so hard to win. If you're looking at a team like from the Big East, St. John's, you get a great price when getting to the Final Four, Joe. Trading at 10%, which means a $100 investment pays back $1,000. If you look at a team like Michigan State, who just upended Indiana on the road, a $100 investment, Joe, plays $910. As Joe said, a lot of volatility, but a lot of profit in these markets, Joe.
Yes, and really look to fade some of this early chalk. And again, you don't need to necessarily see this to fruition, right, Donnie? That's the beautiful thing about the predictive markets, is that I can lock in a price now And all I need is some of these teams to look a little shaky, and there's going to be some value in market volatility that you can profit from.
Joe's so right about this, too, because when you look at, again, we talk about the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 or the Final Four, the championship here, who's going to win it? Some of the times, Joe, when we're talking about the predictive markets, you don't need your team to win it. If you took a long shot and they show up in the final game, that contract is going to be worth a lot of money, even if that team loses. But it's just a matter if you actually hit that button to say, I want to cash out and take my wagering now. Like teams like Michigan State, quality, 2% chance to win, Joe. They find themselves in the Final Four. What's that ticket going to be trading at? 20%, 25%, 30% at that point when you were sitting at 2% here. UConn sitting at 7%. But the favorite, no surprise. It's two teams, Joe and Kalshi, trading the exact same chances here at 22%. It's Duke and it's Michigan, followed by Arizona at 14%. The only other team, Joe, in double digits here for the chance is those Florida Gators.
And again, this is one of those also, these kinds of markets where you can go in reverse, right, Donnie? So if I like Florida, which I do, and I've stated many times, to actually win the national championship, I can go down the board, Donnie, and just the Final Four, the Elite 8, the Sweet 16, just keep going down the board. And you don't have to necessarily wait until they get there, but along the way, lock in those prices now with a team like the University of Florida.
And we talked about earlier in the show today, Joe, you're looking at teams that are already underway in their conference tournaments here. Get a live look at some of these teams. Make sure you keep updated on injuries. But Joe points out very astutely here, you got to see where these teams are actually going in the actual order of 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, and how tough that is actually going to be. Well, we'll be right back here after a quick break. More action on Prediction Markets Edge on the early line.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here, I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Prediction Markets Edge right here on the early line. It is a Monday, Joe, getting the people excited about what? Of course, we're going to be talking college basketball, which we just did, but also switching over to the pro game in the NBA. Donnie right side and Joe Ranieri. Let's get it started, Joe. Pro basketball's best record in the league listed right here on Kalshi. No surprise. It's OKC, Joe. They're trading at a 66% chance right now, followed by Detroit at 25%. And don't look now. The team listed third, the San Antonio Spurs, got beat yesterday by the New York Knicks, but they're listed at a 12% chance, Joe. OKC, Detroit, San Antonio, the favorites here. Who are we thinking out of those three? And also maybe a contract point that you like.
Well, I would much prefer to invest in a team in the East, Donnie, as opposed to the West, right? Because it feels like San Antonio and Oklahoma City, and there's going to be a little Houston, you can't sleep on Minnesota, Denver. It just feels like there's a lot more room for variance in the West than there is the East. I mean, Detroit at this point to be 45-14. Boston is your next best, and they are clear by 6 games in a loss column. It feels like it's Detroit who would, it's theirs to lose in this market. It really is. I think Detroit is ultimately going to end up with the best record in the NBA. And you know the market and the public is going to love themselves some OKC in this spot.
No doubt about it, Joe. And by the way, you could take a look at the evolution of where OKC was. Remember when we started the season, like, hey, they might be able to break the all-time wins record for the regular season. They were trading at 89% back on November the 15th. If we convert that over with Detroit, Detroit was only 9%. So today, as we said, OKC still the favorite, Joe, 66%. But Detroit also coming in now at 25%. So of course, things change over time. We'll certainly keep the people updated on those. But how about this market, Joe? Poly market. The NBA's worst record here. Leader in the clubhouse by a mile. 61%, Joe. It's those Sacramento Kings, followed by the Wizards, Pacers, Nets, and the Grizzlies here. The Kings doing a heck of a job tanking up the season this year.
They are fantastic, but there's a few of them, Donnie, at the bottom of the barrel here. I mean, and it's a race. I know that. I mean, that chart is just, that tells you everything you need to know. But quite honestly, I mean, Utah's got 18, right? You got Sacramento sitting there with 14 wins, but can we sleep on Indiana's playing nobody? Brooklyn, even though they almost beat the Cavs last night, want nothing to do with winning games. And how do you not fade Washington also? So This is a tricky market. I think this is one of those markets, Donnie, where you could pick maybe your 2 favorites and look to profit before it's all said and done, because neither of those teams are going to be winning many more games here down the stretch.
Like, we go back to February 6th here, the Washington Wizards were trading at 34%, the Kings at only 29.9%, the Pacers 24%, and the Brooklyn Nets at 23%. And then fast forward here to the early stages of March, the Sacramento Kings certainly running away with this. So go from the bottom of the ladder to the teams that we think are going to peak for an NBA championship here. We go over to Kalshi, the Eastern Conference champion. It's Cleveland at 26%. It's Boston trading at 25%. It's Detroit at 22%. And then the New York Knicks at 16%. We're tight up top here. And James Harden, by the way, you might have thought he could be down for multiple weeks. He's already back in playing, as we told you, as they beat the Brooklyn Nets by 4 points here. And he had a solid game. But right now, Joe, as it sits, Cleveland the favorite on the Kalshi market to be the Eastern Conference champion.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I really don't. Just they have been atrocious all year against the spread. They've lost to teams they should never lose to. It's been up and down for the Cavs. I don't like the injury at this point in the season already. We're still dealing with a hamstring injury and others there on the Cavs, not to mention a broken thumb. Listen, New York to me has a lot of value because New York, I think, is... We all expect them to be competitive, but nobody really thinks the New York Knicks are going to run the table. Well, I do. I think the Knicks have a ton of value right now to be able to be that team representing the East when it comes to the NBA Finals.
And Joe points out many times, and rightfully so, you don't have to actually win the East. If you take out a contract for the Knicks at 16% and they find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals, you're going to be able to get that profit here without even seeing the Knicks actually win the Eastern Conference and make it to the NBA Finals, Joe. But as we take a look back, how about we go back to November the 17th here? Cleveland was trading at a 30% clip, Boston at 5%. And as we told you, Boston now sits at 25%. And also understand this, Jason Tatum probably on the cusp of returning as well, something that maybe we didn't think to start the season. And also understand this, Boston wasn't one of those teams you were thinking entering into the season they were going to do anything in the Eastern Conference, almost a throwaway season. And yet now, Joe, only 1% behind Cleveland, which is pretty incredible.
It's been a miraculous turnaround, to say the least, right? I think the biggest surprises, Donnie, are going to come from the Eastern side here. Did anybody have Indiana last year? No, I didn't think so. So it can happen without a doubt here. But I do believe, once again, ultimately Detroit, kind of holds a lot of the cards here, and they got to decide what kind of team they are when it matters the most. I think there's some value. Just pick the two teams you think are going to compete in the semifinals, and you got yourself a profit.
And by the way, Western Conference champions will move on as well, which may be a little bit easier to try to predict here than the Eastern Conference, because OKC is the favorite, trading at 50% right now, followed by Denver at 17%, and identical, the San Antonio Spurs also at 17%. Minnesota, Houston, the Lakers, and Golden State rallied out. But it seems like, Joe, the champions from last year, OKC, getting a lot of those contracts taking out right now, listed at 50%.
Yeah, they are, without a doubt, right? And it's probably would have been higher if the injury bug didn't hit OKC, if Jalen Williams hasn't been hurt for what feels like forever, right? If SGA didn't miss all those games there. The problem is, if they're hurt already, you know what happens, Donnie. The chance of maybe one or two of those guys not being available at all could throw a wrench into this thing. But the one team that has shown us that they can actually beat OKC on a consistent basis, San Antonio, might be worth a stab here.
Yeah, San Antonio, $100 investment here to win the Western Conference show. That'll pay back $527. And also understand this, OKC, back on December 14th, Joe, was trading at an all-time high here on Kalshi at close to 66%. So they're back to 50% here. Not invincible on a night-to-night basis, which we thought they were going to be in the month of November. But it's interesting also, people can't quit on Denver, Joe. But I know when you talk about Denver, it's always about the defense. And they just aren't good enough on defense right now.
Well, they are the dark horse simply because they will get Aaron Gordon back. And when they do, they are a completely different team offensively and defensively. That might be worth a play for sure.
Major League Baseball on deck with why? The World Baseball Classic coming up next year. Make sure you keep it right here. Prediction Markets Edge on the early line. We'll be right back.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Right back at it here, Prediction Markets Edge on the early line. It is a Monday, Joe. So many opportunities. We hit some college basketball, some NBA action, and now we're going to flip it over to the WBC that starts March 4th, Joe. Chinese Taipei versus Australia at 10 p.m. It's going to be in Tokyo, Joe. You going to stay up for that one?
I might, Donnie, absolutely here. I do like the WBC. It's another one of these markets where the public is going to treat a lot of these games like as if, it's a battle for the playoffs. But, yeah, there are some opportunities here. Pitching is going to matter, but not the way the market thinks.
Let's get the explanation, because some people are like, oh, World Baseball Classic, that should be fun. How does it work here? Here's the format, Joe. The World Baseball Classic field consists of 20 teams broken into 4 pools. Round-robin play will take place at 4 locations. Those locations, Joe, Tokyo, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Houston, and Miami. Well, let's just say it take place at 4 locations. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sounds like 5 locations. They didn't write that up very well. Each team will play everyone else in pool play. Top performers will advance to the quarterfinals. The pools, Joe, A, B, C, and D, each of those with 4 teams each. Then the World Baseball Classic, as we said, will begin on March the 4th. So let's get into it, Joe. If we make the semifinals, which means you make it out of your qualified play, the U.S. trading at 89%, Japan 84%, the Dominican Republic 66%, Puerto Rico 48%. Now understand this. This is not the championship. This is just making out of pool play here, Joe. But certainly we see the big names in this tournament represented up top with their chances.
Yeah, and they are. And we've talked about this, Donnie, before, where it really, it feels it's very top-heavy, this tournament, right? Meaning that you have Japan as the defending champion here. Obviously, Team USA is going to be the market favorite. And then you've got, you got the Dominican also that has got absolutely stacked there with Soto and Guerrero Jr. and Machado. And there are some good prices with the teams. There's good prices with some teams not named Team USA. So keep that in mind here. You are overpaying in any of these markets for Team USA.
Exactly. Like, and again, 89%. And also, like, you could take those contracts here, just want to win, because Brazil, Great Britain, Italy, Mexico, and the United States is going to be a heavy favorite. That's why they're priced at 89%. But if you're looking for a little bit more value, as Joe talked about, the Dominican Republic trading at 66% to be a semifinals qualifier. If we look at their pool play here, Joe, Dominican Republic, Israel, Netherlands, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, maybe lean towards that, because a $100 investment on the Dominican Republic to advance, Joe, will pay you back $150. Now, let's get to the championship game qualifier, which again means you make it to the championship, not necessarily winning it here. The U.S. trading at 78%, Japan 56%, and then the Dominican Republic here at 33%. So almost in that same line as we anticipate. But once again, making it to the championship game, Joe, doesn't mean you have to win the championship game.
That's correct. And none of these markets, you have to see any of this come to fruition, right? You can buy, it's all about buying low and selling high here. That's the whole point. And you don't want to overpay. And Donnie, at this point, with these markets here, as much as I hate to do it, the value is in shorting Team USA and going down the board. Team Japan, the Dominican Republic, Puerto. There are other places to go here, but just backing Team USA to run the table, I don't think is the best utilization of capital right now.
I'll tell you what, an interesting team to look at, Joe, would be actually Cuba in Pool A. Canada, Colombia, Cuba, Panama, and Puerto Rico. Let's just say if they do make it out of there, stay hot, a $100 investment on Cuba pays back $2,000. And understand what we're talking about as well. This is make it to the championship game. If Cuba just makes it out of their pool, that contract is going to be fantastic. From 5%, that would be way up to maybe 20% at that point if they do that, and that's cash in hand for yourself. How about the classic winner here, Joe? No surprise once again. United States at 52% trading here. Japan 22%, Dominican 18%. All three of those guys in line again, but we are starting to see some steam there lately here on USA, up to as high as 55% on February 18th here, which is now sitting at 52% as we take a look on March the 2nd, Joe.
Yeah, and basically, Donnie, we're getting that Patriot tax, right? That's what we got, the Patriot premium here for Team USA. And again, I would look to short them, but I would look to back a team like Japan, the defending champs with Yamamoto and Ohtani. And, oh, yeah, by the way, an entire team filled with nothing but professional baseball players from the Japanese league here. They are going to want to win it, and they are going to want to repeat. And I think they got good value at that price.
No doubt about it, because you look at Japan, you're trading at 22% at this point right now, and also take a look at value of where it's gone. December 25th, Joe, which was Christmas, Japan was trading at 31%. Now you see today, they're trading at 22%. So buying the dip, as we like to say, but also Dominican Republic at 18%, Venezuela at 5%. Once again, the Classic winner, make it to the championship game. Some of those contracts will certainly be much higher, but Team USA, Joe, is in the fight for the win here. I think USA wins it, Joe. I don't know if I'm going to invest in that, though.
Yeah, it's just that you're not. You're better off just backing them on the money line and rolling it over straight through.
Prediction Markets Edge on the early line. We will see you once again bright and early tomorrow morning for the early line.